Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Archish. I'm one of the founding partners of Zishta. Welcome to our Facebook Live. This is part of our Bodha learning series. And today we are going to talk about a very interesting element called copper. The idea is to target and bring some clarity on some of the gray areas in the use of copper in our day-to-day lives. A lot of people, have over the years have restarted the use of copper, especially to store water overnight and have it the next day. And I think this is something that we had gathered from a lot of our from our elders at home, and even when we had documented our traditional knowledge related to the use of copper. We had taken it from a lot of people, old people with whom we had interacted with, that copper is a very, very active metal that you can use to store water overnight and have it. And this is something that a lot of people in modern times have also recognized, that copper is a very, very effective metal that you can use. Some of the feedback that we received from people in terms of why do we use copper is that it's more to do with the health aspect of it. Also in terms of we can the overnight storage of water in copper infuses some copper into the water, which results in greater health benefits. Now also in terms of there are lots of gray areas, because some people who want to bring in copper into their daily lives are still concerned in terms of are we getting the right amount of copper by storing water in copper, or is there excess of copper that gets infused? So these are some gray areas that are there where people are concerned. People need some clarity. Now when you go online and in search for the benefits of copper, most of the thing that you get is around good copper infusion in water, which results in better health, like better hair growth, skin improvement, and overall health improvement. These are extremely broad. It doesn't kind of give us even in-depth understanding of how copper is effective and benefits to our health by using it. Now let's look at this whole health aspect of it. What people come back and tell us. We try to understand this more from from the traditional route, and gathering knowledge from various communities, old people who have information, who have knowledge about use of copper. We've even spoken to some Ayurvedic physicians. There are lots of information that comes from these sources as well. And also we looked at the modern research, whatever publications that have happened. When we say modern research, we're looking at published research papers in leading journals like Journal of Microbiology, or we have even looked at some of the basic recommendations provided by World Health Organization or National Institute of Medicine. So we have looked at all these various publications and benchmarks that are there. And we gathered a lot of insights and information that we would like to share with you people today. Now, when we look at copper, and the first point in terms of when you have it in copper, they say it infuses copper into your system. So the first question that came out in some, what is the required amount of copper that is needed in a healthy human body? So when we looked at some of the recommendations provided by WHO or National Institute of Medicine, was around 1.3 mg per day, 1 to 1.3, with a maximum cap of 10 mg per day. And that is the recommended benchmark for infusion of copper for a good functioning human body. Now when you look at this, the next question in terms of what are the sources? Are there other sources apart from is storing water in copper and having it is the only source of copper, or are there other sources from where you can get copper? Now same benchmarks, the same kind of studies show that there are various food sources that provide you the daily necessary whatever is required amount. like certain nuts like cashews, whole grains, seafood, cocoa. These are some, just to name a few, are good sources of copper, and a healthy balanced diet as per them generally gives you whatever is the daily required amount of copper. This is a very interesting point to look at, because it kind of then creates an added level of questions as to, then if it's not copper infusion from these vessels, what are we using it for? So before that, let's address few aspects also. The same studies and all that we looked at mentioned that the incidence of deficiency of copper in a human body is very very minimal in terms of incidence overall from a population point of view. And we also looked at whether, what about excess consumption. So even excess consumption seems to be a very minuscule in terms of incidence. The deficiency happens because of factors like malnutrition or some hereditary issues, but predominantly most of the population has been identified as people who have a regular, within the prescribed norms, amount of copper that is being consumed. So we are not consuming excess copper to a great extent. So when we are storing water in these copper containers, is it leaching more copper? Is it more than what is actually needed by the human body? So that's a very interesting, important question to look at, because some people have also raised this concern with us in terms of, are we consuming more copper by storing, by using it over a long period of time? There are people who have said that, you should not use copper continuously. You should just use it for a few months, take a break, you should not use it for a couple of months and then again use it. So you have to, go back and forth in terms of usage of copper. These are some feedback we have received from people. So we wanted to look at whether is this a valid concern. One of the research that we looked at in terms of amount of copper that gets leached in a liter of water. Now when you have normal water which is not acidic, the leaching is to the tune of less than, it's about 0.115 milligram per liter of water. So that is the level to which it's very very less. So when you are saying that when we store overnight water in copper pots or copper vessels, the amount of leaching that actually happens is very very minimal. So you don't have to worry about excess leaching of copper from these copper pots. So with that point addressed, the next question comes in terms of, then why are we using copper? If it is not for infusion of copper, what is the benefit? So this again took us down both the traditional route and the modern research aspect of it. When we looked at the traditional route, like I said before, when we spoke to multiple people from different communities, experts, the essence that we got from most of them was around the fact that copper makes your water very safe. Copper makes your water very healthy. But predominantly we were not getting the essence from them that copper infusion is the reason for which copper pots were used. This was also a kind of revelation for us, because we were also of the opinion that copper infusion is one of the major reasons why we use copper. And this research helped us also to clarify our own our own minds in terms of the actual benefit that traditionally what our people have been using it for. So with this insight in place, we also looked at modern research, and this was one such publication that happened recently, not recently, but it's in the Journal of Health. It happened around 2012-2013. This was about where they had stored water, and this water had they had infused about 1800 counts of bacteria, and they have kept it in different types of containers, stainless steel, aluminium, copper, and this study found out that overnight storage of water in copper pots resulted in the count of bacteria to come from 1800 to the tune of 70. So almost 99% of the bacteria that is there in water is completely destroyed. That is, when I say completely, some of these bacteria, viruses have a tendency to go into a hibernation mode. That is, they become inactive, and when you again take the bacteria and try to revive it, they can start multiplying and grow again. But copper has a very interesting attitude towards bacteria and viruses. It basically goes and attacks the core of the bacteria and viruses and makes them inactive completely. So even after the bacteria is moved out of a copper vessel or a pot, the bacteria never revives and will never be able to propagate. Now, if you look at the early years during our grandparents and before that, one of the major source of health hazard for them was bacterial viral infections. Communicable diseases was one of the major impact on life expectancy itself. So copper was seen as an active metal that can fight against such bacteria and virus infections. So that predominantly seemed to be the reason why traditionally copper had been used for storing water. Overnight, the water is completely safe with most of the bacteria and viruses killed, and the water is safe for consumption. Now, what are the other benefits? Now we looked at one in terms of the actual work of copper on water that we store. The other one that also came through modern scientific research is where we looked at some of the characteristics of the metal itself. Like copper is known to be extremely alkaline by nature. Now, water is generally consumed to be a very considered to be a neutral element. There is something called a pH scale. Now, when you look at a pH scale, there are acids, which chemical acids, or even if you look at tamarind water or lime water, these are acidic components which have pH value which is greater than 7. And 7 is supposed to be the neutral, is the pH value of water. And you also have, less than 7 is acidic, greater than 7 is basic. Sorry for the confusion. Acidic ones are less than 7, so you can go to 3, 2, that's the scale. Lesser the value, pH value, more acidic the chemical is. Water is neutral at 7, and greater the value on this scale, this side of the scale up to 14, it's basic. Now, copper, when you store water in a copper container, the water pH value is maintained around the 7, which is the neutral value. It has a very large ripple effect in terms of your health. There are modern research and there are associated information that is available that keeping your human body, the entire system, from basic to neutral in terms of the pH, whatever we consume, helps in fighting cancer. And this is something that are now being looked at in terms of how do we make our diet more basic and neutral by nature rather than acidic, so that you are not creating an environment for cancer cells to grow. And these are some new information that we have got. So the alkalinity of copper has in terms of neutralizing any acidity. Now, this will always raise a question, is our water acidic? And the answer is actually yes. There are a lot of litmus tests that have been done on bottled water, on water purified water, uh, looked at in terms of what is the level of acidity in it. And it has been observed that a significant amount of water that we consume today is actually acidic and not neutral. So now you will see a lot of purifiers coming with this concept of pH balance, and that is the reason, in order to maintain the pH value of water, making it as neutral as possible. Now you can also use copper for that purpose. Store water overnight and you will be able to maintain the pH value of the water that you are consuming. And this morning first intake of water from a copper container with neutral water, which is non-acidic, has a lot of health impact, and that is the health benefit that we are talking about. So basically, uh, copper infusion with by storing water overnight is very minimal. Two, bacteria and viruses which can cause a lot of health problems even today are killed, and there is no active bacteria at the end of, when you store water in copper. And three, alkalinity of copper helps in neutralizing the acidity if there is anything in water. Now with that, it kind of addresses the main reason why we should use copper. Now let's understand some of the concerns people have, right? What are the concerns in terms of in terms of use of copper? One is in terms of, people talk about, can we consume hot water in copper containers? I'll address this question this is the same answer for even acidic, like lime juices. Is the same answer. It's not advisable. The reason being, when we did the research, when you have normal water, a WHO also recommends that the maximum amount of water, copper infusion in water, should not be more than 2 milligram per liter. That's some kind of a benchmark they have said. Through water consumption per liter should not be more than 2 mg. Now, when you store hot water or acidic, like when I say acidic, lime juices and those kind of acidic liquids as such, what you're going to have is more than 2 mg. So when you have normal water, the infusion is about 1.6 mg per liter, and that's the max that has happened. That has also been published in a research document. So when you store very acidic components, it goes beyond 4 mg. So what we say, this is beyond what is actually needed for the human body. So our recommendation is, please do not consume hot water in copper, because it leaches more copper than required. Lime juices and other acidic things, please do not use. Now there are few things that also you need to look at. One, in terms of when the water is extremely acidic by nature, there are a lot of other things that can also cause acidity in water, not just lime juices, right? There are other things. Presence of certain minerals can make the water acidic. The copper leaching will be slightly higher to neutralize the acidity in the water. So it is always good for you to know the kind of water that you are consuming, so that you can identify the right copper amount of the right amount of time that you store water in a copper vessel, and to also whether it is necessary or not. The second question that people ask is oxidization. Copper has a tendency to oxidize when it comes in contact with the with air, as you keep it outside. Now, oxidization is a natural process. You will find some black coloring that will happen, which just to show you an example, this is slightly oxidized. You can see black spots on the surface, the shine is gone. This is something that is natural, normal, and it should happen. A copper container should oxidize. That just is a natural process. Now, is the black spots harmful? No. there are no research information that we could gather at this point of time that says copper, these black spots are harmful for your health. The other thing that happens is certain green tinges, that green formation, patina formation they say, that is can cause some illness. So always have a lookout for, if there is black spots, oxidization, no need to worry. If there are these green formations, immediately clean it. Now when it comes to that, let's go to how to clean this. Okay, it's very critical. Copper vessels need to be cleaned regularly so that the benefit of bacterial and viral killing happens effectively. Now, tamarind, lime, vinegar, traditional materials that have always been used for cleaning copper, and even brass. So because brass is an alloy of copper, copper and zinc. So in both the cases, these three material, tamarind, lime and vinegar, works wonderfully well, and you don't have to go for any other option. What we'll do is, I'll just pass it on to my friend here who will go and clean this using lime, and we will show you how how we are able to clean most of the part. Now when we are doing it, just make sure that you are able to access all the corners of a copper pot or a vessel, whatever containers that you have. It's a jug or a pot or even any other design, whatever be the case. You're able to access all the corners. You're able to reach to the edges. You're able to clean it effectively. Apply the the little bit of the tamarind skin or the lime skin and scrub it. You can use a Scotch Brite, more than enough. You don't have to use anything else. Scotch Brite and lime, just scrub it. You just need about 2-3 minutes of scrubbing. That's it. And that is very important, because the more you are able to access and scrub, you will be effectively able to remove the patina formation as well as any oxidization, the black spots that we say. You will be able to remove it. This is very important, as you are looking at identifying the right kind of copper vessel that you would want to buy. Now, there is other thing. There are people who ask, do we have to worry about the design of copper? Is there any traditional knowledge or information that you have as to why, in olden days you will see mostly these kind of smaller pots, or you will find large containers to store 15-20 liters or 50-30 liters of water. Is there a specific reason for that kind of a design? If you look at the old traditional copper pots, we observed one thing that was very interesting. All of them have these bead patterns, predominantly most of them, and they will be without the bead pattern. It will be very broad and wide at the bottom and narrow in the mouth. Now we gathered two critical information, one from the traditional route and the other from modern science route. The traditional route mentioned that having a broad base and a narrow mouth helps in stabilizing the water that is stored in it. What do you mean by stabilizing the water? So this information is basically, it can also be explained to an extent scientifically, but we will not address it that way, but we will keep it pure to the traditional knowledge. Water, as it flows through rivers, as you take it from pipes, the molecules are extremely agitated most of the time. Agitated water consumption, according to ancient science, is not recommended. The water has to be still and very, very calm when you consume it, and that is part of the traditional science. Now, when you store water in a broad base and a narrow mouth, the water surface tension reduces significantly, and the water molecule agitation drops down dramatically. So then it is seen as a much more healthier option for consumption. The modern scientific route actually addresses a different point. the broader base or the bead patterns, both these cases increases the contact area of copper with water that is stored inside, thereby increasing the impact of from a health point of view. So you are having a greater surface area that comes in contact with the water that is stored. So from bacterial infection, bacterial and viral killing, or in terms of neutralizing the acidity in water, greater the surface area, more effective in terms of the impact. So that is something that we received. Now let's, there was one question from our Facebook live chat. Customer who was asking about even clay, has the same tendency. So which is better? So clay also has the same tendency. Clay is also alkaline by nature, and it has the capability to neutralize the acidity of water, and that is also a known aspect of it. The main addition, like we said, from copper point of view, is the killing of bacteria, which is not something that is still being proven through modern research in clay. We had looked at some other aspects between copper and even glass. And glass, you would also know, is a very neutral, is an inert material. And in scientific researchers, like glass is the significant medium, or is used like petri dishes, where in order to culture, grow bacteria, viruses, glass is one is used because it does not impact the growth. So in this research that where they had looked at copper and glass on the bacteria, on tap water, amount of bacteria that is present, they looked at storing water in glass results in multiplication of the bacteria to a great extent, and copper basically kills it, and there is no further growth. That's another research that we saw. This is also to be looked at. Between copper and clay, like I mentioned, clay is a very is a cost-effective option, but it has a life. You have to change clay after maybe a maximum of 12 months. 12 to 15 months is what we have seen is the life of clay. Generally, in olden days, I've seen it is during the Makar Sankranti, that period in January, when you have this incident of bogi in south, they'll basically change all the clayware at home. That's also kind of says that 12-month cycle is what traditionally has been followed. The killing of bacteria, viruses in water by clay is not something that has been documented yet. There are no research papers available for us to talk about this point. But with copper, yes, we can very confidently say, and these research documents, whatever we had collated, we'll obviously share with everyone, and that's for public. It's available in public domain. It is just that it's not easy to get. You have to really put in a lot of effort to find out. There are people who have asked about, like what are the things that you should look at when you are buying a copper container, copper bottles or copper pots, whatever be the design. What are the things that you should look at? One is in terms of look at whether lacquering has been done on copper. So lacquering is actually a chemical coating that is given on the surface to reduce or to kind of decelerate the oxidization. So that black things that we said, right, that will happen. So now that the copper this thing is there, let me show you. Once we have cleaned it, this is what this is just with lime. We are able to remove most of the oxidization and the patina formation. So this, I'm saying, lime, all these things are very good source. The other, so when we looked at lacquering is an issue that, so like I said, it is used basically to give a chemical coating on the surface to prevent to reduce the level of oxidization that happens. Just make sure that lacquering is not in the surface where it is coming in contact with water. So this inside surface of any copper container should not be lacquered. Outer surface, if it is lacquered, is not a major health issue. Second thing that you need to look at is in terms of purity of copper. How do you test it? There was once one customer said that if you keep a good quality copper in your ear, you will hear a very interesting metallic sound, and that is, I mean, it's a traditional knowledge. I don't know, we are not saying that is the best route, but at least make sure when people who, from where you buy, make sure that it is some tested, is the metal is tested. There are no lead contamination, because lead contamination can lead to more leaching in water. So these are things that you need to just be a little careful about. And three, you are able to clean it easily. See, when you are able to access all the corners, it's important for copper. You cannot just buy copper and say, we'll store water, because as and when the patina formation happens, though I say it can cause some illness, but it's not very, very harmful, but still it will impact the taste. That metallic taste will come, the copper, leaching will be more, it should move forward. So cleaning on a regular basis is very, very important. So just make sure whatever copper that you buy at least addresses some of these areas. Good quality in terms of the copper. Two, in terms of accessibility for cleaning, and even if there is some kind of bead patterns are there, which also increases your contact area, so that is also there. And lacquering is something that you need to keep in your mind when you're buying copper. So people ask, okay, this blue-green formation, what is it? Is it harmful? The patina formation that they say, it's basically copper ions that comes out because either there are certain, as you store water for a very long time, the copper that infused sometimes just deposits on the surface. It is natural process. It happens over time when you use copper without cleaning it on a regular basis. When you don't clean it on a regular basis, it does happen. So you just have to make sure that you clean it regularly, like we said, with lime, tamarind, tamarind and vinegar are good ways of cleaning it. And they are not very harmful, but it can cause some illness, these green patina formations. So just keep a lookout for those, make sure that you clean it and keep it safe. So I'll just have a look at if there are any more questions that we have from the team that we can address. So, just to conclude our session today, what we have understood from the traditional sources as well as from modern research is that copper is an active metal that can help in killing all your bacteria and viruses in water. So you can use this metal in your day-to-day lives, because the infusion of copper is not very, very high. So you don't have to worry about excess copper consumption, even if you use copper on a daily basis. So you don't have to worry about it. The alkalinity helps in neutralizing the acidity aspect of water. And things that you need to keep in mind about lacquering, very easy accessibility of all the corners to clean, and also to make sure not to store hot water or lime juices as such on copper, because the leaching is more. There is also concern in terms of what if there are impurities in water. Like a lot of groundwater today is contaminated with either hard water like calcium carbonate or some sulfates are all there, and copper as such does not react with any of these any minerals that are already there in water, and that's something that you don't have to worry about too much. So with this we will also address some of the questions if it comes up. We will post a lot of these research papers that we had gathered as part of this knowledge series. We deep dived and collated a lot of research material, went through it, to make sure that we are sharing the right information and necessary information for you people. It's very easy to just very superficially look at, just say, copper is good for health, it grows, helps in better health, is not enough for people, for people who are going to invest money in buying something. I think we need to give you a lot more information than what is available, and that's what got us into doing this deep dive, getting a lot of research material, and also not just getting the material. We have went through the material to assess what is the critical information that you would need, whether it makes sense or not. And this is kind of a culmination of all the effort that we had put in gathering this information. And thank you for your time, for watching this live feed, and we look forward to all your questions, and obviously we'll post this video in Facebook as well as other channels, so that this information is available for all of you for eternity. Thank you.